I'm Jenny Fischer, and I'm joined now by Marlon Stewart, assistant coach for Oregon State men's basketball. And first and foremost, what have the last 3 months, beginning with the cancellation of the college basketball season until now, been like for you personally?
It's been a lot in a lot of different ways. We were on an all-time high. We had a kid, Jared Lucas, he had missed a shot a couple weeks prior in a similar situation where senior guard kicked it to him. And it was an emotional locker room. He was really hurt that he felt like he let everyone down, but in our mind, it's like, man, we don't want anyone else taking that shot. Jared, you're a stud, and he truly got in the gym, worked, and then it culminates in a really big game in the conference tournament, and it comes down to one possession, and you've got a senior whose career could be ending, who kicks it to a freshman, same guy passing the ball to the same guy a couple weeks later, and he knocks it down. We take the lead, we win the game, and it was the high of the season. It was incredible, and then the next day we're getting ready for the game. Boom, it's done. And then you're focused more on that than the actual grand, the bigger issue, which is the pandemic, which is affecting a lot of people. And so you got to take a step back. And so you kind of go through all that. And then obviously it affects a lot of different areas of your life and people around you. And then the lynching of George Floyd comes around and it compounds things. And now you're going through, adjusting your life to all these things you've been experiencing and thinking about your entire life as a Black man. You feel the same, anxiety, anger, hate, sadness, hopelessness, and all that. And then for me, the one different one was a sense of guilt, but it was like an extreme sense of guilt, just from not doing things that were really, you can't do them. I wouldn't be an assistant coach, unfortunately, at this level if I had, spoken out all the time and said what I was feeling all the time. But you still feel the guilt, for not kind of opening that window because, I work in a largely white space in college athletics. I grew up in a white space in the suburbs near Seattle. And, and I could have been a window for a lot of people to see what's going on now. When realistically, it wasn't possible, but at the same time, you can't help but feel like, man, I could have done more. So that's a brief version of a lot of feelings and emotions from the last 3 months.
Definitely a lot packed into the last 3 months. And you mentioned it, but in the town hall meeting on the Rising Coaches Network on June 2nd, you talked a bit about your own experiences and growing up. When did you know that you wanted to be a coach, and how did those experiences, maybe the values that you have, shaped you and play into that?
I've kind of always been around sports. My dad coaches high school football, and I just played sports growing up. And then I got to college at Washington State, and Mike Burns, who's now at Boise State. My mom got me on as a ball boy for him at Highline Community College, and I ended up being a manager. He kind of helped me out. And Dick and Tony Bennett were there, and Ron Sanchez, Ronnie Weidman, a bunch of guys who really helped shape me. When leaving home, that kind of became the core group that really built who I have, a large part of who I am now. And it was really the stuff outside of the basketball, kind of just helping me become a man. After I left home, a lot of those things showed me how much college basketball can do for people. Because I was doing laundry, wiping up sweat, and it transformed my life. In my mind, it was like I owed so much back to it, and I think that's what drew me to it. Despite people telling me you don't want to do this, it's a lot. You're going to be moving around a lot. People get fired all the time. It's hard on your family. To me, it was like I became addicted to it, and it's just kind of stayed. Unfortunately, I kept going because of the basketball, but it was all the things that have been instilled in me through basketball that I'm able to give back now, which is great.
I saw that you've been vocal on your Twitter recently about some topics ranging from police brutality to equality and beyond. Why is it important to continue that conversation and to even use your platform as a coach to talk about these severe issues that we have going on in our country?
Because we have a window to where people are going to listen right now. It's something that's always been there. And I think for a lot of us, we work independently behind the scenes and in just little aspects of our lives to help change. I think a big part, for me is through education. Both my parents are in education, and I see the value in that. And I also see that, I went to a public school that was really like a private school because it was in the suburbs and it was nice. And things like the tax dollars that go into how I was raised versus people who don't have that same opportunity. Well, I have an opportunity to get those people who don't have that same opportunity. They have a skill that I can help them get into school. Maybe they might be just a little bit off, but once they get here, I can help them graduate and then go and help pour back into that community. Yeah, because in my mind, until the community I grew up in gives their tax dollars and starts giving to the other communities, we're going to be facing these issues. And the hard part, after people are done listening right now, this is all going to, people aren't going to be as passionate about it. And the people who can give back to those communities, are they going to be passionate enough about it to give up some of what they got? So right now, I think while we have people's ears, getting them to do things that will systematically change, our communities, I feel obligated to say something right now because I can.
Yeah, and you've talked about the communities. There's the college basketball community. You've got the communities that these people have grown up in, even opportunity and how college basketball and scholarships alone can provide that for people. I hate to use this analogy because it's cliche, but it's true. And John Wooden talked about it, so I feel like I can say it. Basketball is just a microcosm for life. So what do you think this game has taught you that you try to pass on to your players in the next generation in terms of on the court translations to off the court?
I think the ability to work with others, teamwork, empathy, some of for me, I feel like the major things that have gotten me to where I'm at now are humility and servanthood. If you really are willing to take the leap of faith to serve something that you can't see what you're jumping into, but you're willing to serve it because you just, something in your gut tells you it's right, it's good, it's, and you just go do it with everything you got. Generally things are going to work out, and then understanding who you are. And that's not just saying, hey, I'm not like, I know I'm not this good, but it's also saying, I know I'm not this bad. I know exactly who I am. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. I accept them. And being able to do what you're really good at, ask help where you need help. And I think that's something a lot of the people in the country, especially in leadership positions, need to have a little more of right now. Empathy, humility, servanthood, those types of things. So
while you mentioned it, why do you think just having good leadership is so important right now? Because we're talking about coaching, and I mean, when you boil it down, that's completely leadership. But outside of basketball, even, why do you think it's so important?
And I think it's hard because it's all good, bad. It's almost, I don't know the right words for it. Everything's black and white. Well, I shouldn't use black and white right now, but good and bad. And it's this or that. Who's the greatest, LeBron or Michael? And really, it's just so much more complex than that people just need to lead differently. They need to, instead of seeking power, they need to seek equality and making life better for everybody, or not. Or they just need to come out and say it, like, this is what we want. We want the 1%. We want people at the bottom. We want people, and that's not realistic, but leadership's important because if you don't lead properly, people stop following, and that's what's happening right now. If you have poor leadership at all, look at a basketball team. If you don't lead properly, it all falls apart. The guys just kind of do their own thing. They detract. You lose games. It's the same thing happens if you don't treat a certain population properly. If you don't lead properly, eventually they're going to be fed up with it. And that's what's happening right now. And so people got to listen. If they listen and work with people, help lead them, because honestly, it's not like I got the answers. But if we work together and they're able to lead and provide solutions and get people to work together, then things can be resolved. And that's for the country, that's for our sport, that's for college athletics, that's for everything.
I like what you said about leading differently, because I think a lot of people are trying to figure out different solutions there's a lot of issues and problems happening right now, whether that be in college athletics, college basketball, or in the world. But something I think about a lot is like, how will all of this affect the college basketball landscape once the season actually comes around? Because we've seen protests during NFL football games and before games. And it's like, will protests occur before or during games, or the games themselves being put off to focus on these kind of efforts? Like the NBA and Kyrie Irving have stepped into this with that thought. Do you see all of this coming into the college basketball landscape when the season does come around?
I think so. Yeah. Something's got to keep not necessarily the conversation going, but it's got to keep things on people's minds. And I think it's affected enough people deeply. And really, it's the younger generation that's driving this thing. And I think it's our responsibility to follow them and help them. Um, but it'll help keep it going. But I see, Jeff Goodman tweeted today something. I think there's 8 Power 5 head coaches that are black or minorities out of 65, and then, it creates this banter back and forth. Well, there's just not any good candidates and this and that. Well, how about we all take a step back and think about it? Why? Look at the history of coaching. It was great that Tick Price was on there and be able to listen to his story. And it makes you think, all right, let's take a step back and look at the history of it and the structure of it. Why are there only 8? And then how do we fix that? Because I think about 59.5% of the Power 5 assistants are black. I don't know what percentage of the players are black. So, it's easy to get up there and say, well, they want us to do all the work and they don't think we can lead. Okay, well, why? And how do we change that? Because you can say that there's no good candidates. Well, where are the candidates coming from? Because 60% of the high majors, so they're not coming from the high major assistant pool, or the low major assistant pool. I can't remember. I was in the Big West and the Big Sky. I can't remember exactly how many black coaches there were, but I think in the Big Sky, at the time I was there, I think there's 1. There might be 2 now. In the Big West, I think there's 1 who was an interim, and then 2. And so proportionately, the percentages are lower. And sure, that's an issue, but how do we resolve it? Because it's not an overnight, like all this stuff, it's not an overnight fix. It's a systematic deal that, a lot of people I think just don't realize is an issue, but now they're starting to see it, and we need leadership to help work with us to help solve it.
Yeah, it's now that they've been brought to light, working on the back end to figure out, you're saying there's opportunity, but is there access to opportunity? And I mean, you can go on and on about it, but I just read a similar article about black assistant coaches, and it's like, you can't just have token individuals. You can't think of them as recruiters. There's so many things down this line where it's like, maybe that was the old way. Maybe that's the way some people still think about it, but there's obviously things that need to be done about what's happening in representation. So I would just want to thank you, Marlon, for your voice and for your time. And is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, just kind of the same thing I said on the Rising Coaches deal is I think part of that is the adding empathy to everything, and I think that's where I was fortunate to kind of grow up in a white community and then go out as a black man and find out that it's not the same, getting pulled over and having just experiencing life as a black man outside of, in the world is very, very different. But it's allowed me to see both sides. And it's allowed me to see what the people, because it's not the black community that has to solve the issues. Because we can't, we're not the majority. We don't have the power. Things have to be given to us. But to empathize with the majority so that they can be open to understanding and hopefully, it's out of our hands, but hopefully start to step up and say, you know what, we do need to change some of these things. So.
I appreciate that too. I heard someone say you can't expect black people to be the victim and the savior. So like you said, it's empathizing, it's coming together. It's like, we've got work to do. And I think the key in that is we. So I just want to thank you so much again and make sure that you stay safe and stay healthy.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.